Welcome to another project from SORTS 6233, the Society for Restoring Trains. And tonight's project is about this little machine here. You probably recognise it's the R52 Jinty, an 060 tank, and these were introduced around about 1960 by R52, so these machines could be up to 50 years old. This one here contains the later Type 3 couplers, and it's held by a screw through the body rather than a chimney screw, but it's a good little runner and I use it for shunting. This is not the one I'm going to work on tonight. This is the one I'm going to work on tonight. In fact, in this little box I have all the pieces I require to build my own Jinty. I've collected these pieces up as I do a lot of repairs to the Jintys and to 060 diesels. And I discovered that I've actually got enough in here to make a new one. So let's just have a look and see what I've got. First of all, I've got a body shell. Ignore the colour just now because I can repaint this and I'll be doing that later on. But the thing with this body shell, it's in very good condition. It's got 4 sets of steps, 2 on each side. It has 2 front buffers, 2 rear buffers. There are no body cracks anywhere, and for its age this is a really nice Jinty body shell. Because a lot of body shells I have either got steps missing or buffers broken or the buffer beam. So this is good. The 6-wheel chassis, fairly basic, but it does the job. And this particular machine has got a Type 2 coupler, so these are the older types. And I've got a layout with Super 4 track, and I like running with these hooks, so I'm going to enjoy using this particular shunter. The wheels have all been cleaned and lubricated, so this is all ready to be assembled. I have here an X04 motor. I've cleaned and checked the windings. I've got a pair of brushes, and I fitted new copper heads to them, and I have the contact spring with the insulating sleeve, so that will build up to an X04 motor. After that, I've got a pair of conrods. I can't remember the model number. 2 conrods, 2 screws. These will be connected onto the chassis. I have here a pickup with insulated fibre sleeve, all the electrics I need. There's a pickup with the 2 copper strips that fit behind the front and rear driving wheels, the connecting wire that works through onto the motor. I have here a clip that connects onto the motor, and it fits onto the positive pole of the motor. TV suppressor which will connect onto the shell. This is a fibre washer, and we need 2 fixing screws, and there they are. And finally, I had one there. Yes, here we go. Just to finish off the assembly, I have 2 screws, 2 small screws in here. One to fix the suppressor onto the block, one to fix the motor onto the chassis, and a long, I think it's an S1008 chassis chimney fixing screw. Everything I need to create a Jinty. To give it a final touch, I have a new set of decals. The only thing I'm disappointed in is that this doesn't have the running number 47606, but I can easily get around that problem later on. I've got a choice of 3 different body decals. What I use will depend on how I feel near the end. So that's what we're going to do. We put all this together, and hopefully by the end of the video I will have a working Jinty locomotive. Okay, first stage I'm going to do is I'm going to try and remove the paint from the body, and I'm going to use Dettol. It's a hint I saw on the internet from somebody who works with plastic models. I've tried it on a couple of practice bodies and it doesn't do quite a bad job. What you need is a plastic tub to hold the Dettol with the plastic body in it. You need a pair of gloves when you're handling Dettol because you can get irritation, and a little fine bristled brush, to help you get into little nooks and crannies. This little tub here, I'll show you right now what that's for. Because the first thing I'm going to do is to remove the buffers. Normally these are just plug in and they just twist out, like so, from the front and from the back. Also have these little brass whistles, so I'm just going to try and carefully remove those. Very carefully twist them, and they should come out because they're metallized, they're not glued in as far as I know. There's one and there's the other. So now what I've got is one complete moulding with no extra bits or pieces. When I remove all the paint, I will of course remove the buffer red as well, in both the front and back, and hopefully remove all of this all round. You can't see it on camera, but through the paint is the remnants of an original decal on the cab body and on the cab and the boiler sides, but I can get new decals for that. Okay, so let's make a start. This can take anything from about an hour to 24 hours depending how the paint is. So if I can get this underway, I will then be able to concentrate on the other aspects of the rebuild. So the gloves on. Put the body into the tub and apply a little bit of Dettol. Just sprinkle it over. If you have enough Dettol, you can put in enough to make it a bath and submerge it totally. I'm just going to take my brush and kind of make sure that the Dettol covers all of the body. And here, it is quite a pungent agent, so do be careful and keep your workspace reasonably well ventilated. And you can see that the buffer red paint is coming off already. An aspect of the Dettol is it is in fact reusable, so when I'm finished with this I don't need to discard the Dettol. I can maybe keep it if I've got another project lined up. I'm just going to top up with the Dettol, and I'm going to put that aside, put a timer on it for an hour, and we'll come back to it and see how it goes. Just remove the gloves for the time being, carefully. These are discardable and I would recommend that they are discarded. I've got plenty of them, I wouldn't reuse them very often. One piece of advice I would like to give you is put a cover onto the workpiece just in case of any spillage. Let me just put all this aside and I'll come back to you for the next phase. Okay, let's start off with reassembling. I have a pair of conrods here, and what I'm going to do is clean them up. I've got here some sticker remover, which I find works pretty well with grease and sticky stuff. So just a bit on a cotton bud. Take your conrod and just wipe the shaft of the conrod. This is the front. A little bit there, reluctant to come off. And that brings it up pretty nicely. Similarly with the other one. It's looking pretty grey and oily, so let's see if we can bring it up a bit. Especially around the pinions, put it into the wheels, and a nice appearance at the front. Looks good. Fresh cotton bud. Nice little polish. Remember when you're working with these conrods that there are little tabs usually above the holes. These meant to simulate the wells that the engineer would pour oil into whenever they stop, and you see them in the old films around a big oil can, and they're pouring into these little wells which will lubricate the axles. So these must go to the top. Now, these are quite symmetrically placed wheels, so it doesn't make a lot of difference which side the conrods go on. If my memory serves me correct, and I'm probably just about to get proved wrong, so let's try it. Fit the pins into the front and back drive wheels, line it up, and then line it up with the centre drive wheel. That looks okay. The screw, quite a small screw, has a shoulder that fits. Don't know if that will pick up the camera. There's a shoulder there that fits inside to the conrod. That allows you to tighten the screw but leave the conrod free to rotate. Set it into its locating hole, and I should have a special screwdriver which I use for this purpose. Here we go. Try again. Nicely in there, make sure it's fitted in alright. These jobs can be a bit finicky, but this is the beauty of it. We need to do something that requires delicacy. It doesn't look so. No, I think in fact if you look carefully you'll see that while these two, yeah, you can see how the wheels don't line up properly. So there is a left and a right side, which means this must be an X51 and X52 pair. So let's see what happens when I try this set. That there, that there, that, and that's better. I'm sorry about that, folks, I didn't notice that the first time. So there is a left and a right side when you're fitting the conrods to a Jinty. And that should make it easier to work. Good. Now let's try the other side. Again, the oil wells to the top, and when you put them into the front and the back drive wheel, the centre wheel is already lined up. And there we go. Conrods working nicely. Okay. Now that I have my chassis working, the conrods are working fine, my next task is to fit the pickup plate. Pickup assembly comprises of the pickup plate with the two fingers that sit behind the drive wheels. There's an insulating washer because the chassis is metallic, and the pickup plate has these exposed copper rivets and strip. So this fits on in such a way that the chassis will not connect to the pickup. There are two screws, one for each side, to hold it underneath the chassis. When we'll get that in, we need then to connect it to the positive pole of the motor. This is done through this little lead, which has a curved contact which will fit underneath the positive pole of the motor, and this end will solder onto the end of this. And to finish it off, Triang fitted what they call a TV suppressor, because these give off high frequency spikes which can interfere with television and radio equipment. So let's now start with the assembly. The pickup plate can only fit on one side of the locomotive, and if you look at the wheels on this side, you will see that there is an insulating bush between the axle in the centre and the wheel here. There's a black ring there, that is an insulating bush, and all three wheels on this side have those. Compare that to the other side, you'll find that there is no insulating bushes because the wheel is connected directly to the chassis, which feeds direct onto the axle, which feeds to the chassis, and that provides power to the negative pole of the motor. So I have to insert my pickup plate so that the two fingers of the pickup will sit behind this wheel and this wheel. Here is the pickup plate. I fit the wire in so that it goes behind the drive wheel. The fingers sit behind the wheels, and I should line up the hole on the pickup plate, the hole on the fibre washer, and the hole on the chassis, and allow me to fit the screw. Don't tighten them because you need to make sure that they're both in. Sometimes they need to be reset or resettled, and like so. You can see how the copper fingers are sitting behind the flanges of the wheel on both sides. Now I can tighten this up, and that's it there. This wire comes up in such a way that it will allow the motor to sit in there. Speaking of the motor, here we have an X04 motor. These are used in a lot of Triang and Hornby locomotives. Very reliable little motor. It does the job very well. Very simple, 3-pole. It's got 3 coils wound in series. Each coil is connected to this copper ring here called an armature, and the power is fed to there, which magnetizes the coils, which causes them to rotate. The motors require 2 brushes. These are called X67s, and they require a retaining spring. This does 2 jobs mainly. One is it holds brushes in place, and secondly provides continuity for the negative power. It sits over the end of the motor. There's a little screw with a collar, clips in there. There's an insulating sleeve goes over the positive pole, which is normally to the right hand side as you look from the back. The brushes fit in from underneath. Simply hold them on the brush head, line up with the hole in the mica support that slides through, and the spring just clips underneath. Squeeze the spring closed, pick up the other brush, and it slides in the other slot, and the brush spring closes on that, holding the brushes in. And the last thing to do is make sure that the insulating sleeve sits between the spring and the brush head. And there we have an X04 motor. We can at this point test it. So there's my negative clip onto there. My positive clip I will just connect to the positive pole, apply a bit of power, and the motor should work. And there we go. You don't want to apply too much power because it's working off load. So let me just turn it round and change direction, and it's probably running because I put new brush heads on, so just apply a little bit more power, and come on baby, there we go. Make sure the contacts are good, and in like so. Okay. Now it's time to connect the motor to the chassis. This is the positive power lead coming from the pickups. It has to connect to this pole here. The motor goes in like so. There are 2 little lugs you can just see there on my fingernails, and they slide into 2 slots there, and one on the other side. Route this wire so that it comes behind this pin. Slide the motor down the chassis, ensuring that those little lugs locate into the slots, and then just maneuver it in. That's it there, and the screw holds it in place. Come on, baby. Yep, that's it there. Right, so make sure it's seated properly before tightening the screw. Good. I'm going to bring in my rolling load because I want to make sure that the mechanism is now working. negative lead onto the chassis. I have to use it this way because I don't have the power from the pickups yet. Apply a little bit of power. And there we can see it's working, yeah. In one direction. And change power into, come on baby. Not a very good contact here. Into the other direction. Oops, come on. Yep, oops. There we go. That's it. Yeah, it works. Now it's time to fit the rest of the electrical connection. That should let me run my Jinty. I'm going to fit the suppressor to this block. It's called a contact block. It sits in there. These can come in different shapes and sizes. Basically it's a capacitor, about 22 picofarad. The positive lead from the pickup will come up and be fed, making sure that you don't snag on the motor. It'll come up to be fed into there, and connecting here will be the lead which will go from this junction to the positive pole. So, soldering iron, apply solder liberally. Here, and here. This is called tinning. And then I've got to get 3 wires all connecting together with only 2 hands. That holds there. And this one apply a little insulating around that connection to prevent any shorts, particularly when the body goes on. It could press down and you could short out. I'll get that done later on. This clip here will sit underneath the positive pole of the motor, sits in there, that goes on, and now we should have continuity from the pickup through the wire into the white lead, onto the positive pole, through the motor, back through here to negative, back to this, which will take us to negative rail. That is the theory. Is my rolling road. I've got the power supply connected up. I'm going to apply power and we'll see what happens. There we go. I think the brushes still need a bit running in. So let's let that run for a little while in that direction. And there we have a working Jinty 060 tank. Let's reverse the direction. Oops. It's slow running, reasonably smooth. Excellent. I'm really pleased with that. My next task is I'm going to take it over to my test track and we will see if it runs. Well, there she is sitting in the test track. I'm just going to apply a bit of power and see how she goes. Nice smooth slow pickup. And right down the back, and just apply a bit more. There she goes, responds nicely. Coming round the back. And get reverse speed. Not much wrong with that, is there, folks? Not much wrong with that. And let's try it in the opposite direction. There we go. And there we have a Jinty being built almost from scratch. On test track mark